Watch for 3 clues: no writings, late biographies, and mixed styles, and you'll spot when one genius is actually many. Today, 33 historical figures your teachers lied about they were group projects. We'll start with Shakespeare's plays, then race to Edison's crowded lab. Then we end at Apollo 11, where teamwork literally touched the moon. Stay for number 33, because the last reveal is insane. Shakespeare may have been a pen name for many. The world's most famous playwright might be a crowded signature. In Elizabethan London, plays hit the globe like weekly news. Yet William Shakespeare left thin paperwork beyond Stratford-upon-Avon records. Actors John Dominguez and Henry Condell gathered scripts for the first folio. Who actually held the pen when the curtain rose? Rival writers, lawyers, and court insiders kept popping up nearby. The Oxfordian rumor points at Edward de Vere, an aristocratic poet. But theater companies rewrote constantly, swapping scenes to fit audiences. In the end, the genius may include a whole room. 2. Homer was likely a tradition, not a single poet. The Iliad and Odyssey may be a choir, not one voice. For centuries, Greek bards recited battles at feasts and festivals. These traveling singers memorized formulas, then reshaped lines in performance. Only later were the epics fixed into writing in Ionia. Athens even sponsored official recitations, turning performance into public policy. Different regions preferred different episodes, like swapping favorite scenes. Scholars still argue whether Homer was one singer or a label. Either way, the poems survived because many mouths carried them. That's why the hero sounds consistent, yet the seams peek through. 3. Socrates was written into existence by his students. History's best philosopher never wrote a single line himself. In 399 BCE, Athens tried Socrates after wartime paranoia. Plato turned the trial into dialogues, sharp and stag-worthy. Xenophon offered a calmer version, like a second camera angle. Aristophanes mocked him earlier, floating him in a comedy basket. Which Socrates do we meet, the rebel or teacher today? Even his famous last words shift depending on who's remembering. Students needed a hero for questioning, so they sculpted one. And we keep quoting the statue, forgetting the missing blueprint. 4. Cleopatra's reputation was crafted by Roman spin doctors. Cleopatra became a villain because Octavian needed a clean victory. After Actium, Rome painted Alexandria as dangerous luxury and seduction. Writers called her foreign, while ignoring her sharp political alliances. She spoke multiple languages and ruled Egypt from the Ptolemaic court. Her meetings with Julius Caesar and Mark Antony were calculated theater. Coins show a strong profile, not the dreamy Hollywood face. Why do posters sell seduction, not her careful diplomacy instead? Meanwhile, Cleopatra managed grain, fleets, and a tense Roman neighborhood. Her legend reads like Rum's script, with Egypt as scenery. 5. King Arthur was a legend built from many warriors. Arthur's Round Table might be a collage of real battles. After Rome left Britain, warlords fought Saxon raids and rivals. Early Welsh poems hint at a fierce fighter, but not Camelot. If Camelot is real, why does it arrive so late? Centuries later, Geoffrey of Monmouth wrote a sweeping royal biography. French romances piled on Lancelot, Guinevere, and the Grail quest. Different regions claimed his battles, like fans claiming hometown legends. Even the Battle of Badon gets pinned to several leaders. Arthur survives because nobody ever owned the story alone truly. 6. Robin Hood was probably a blend of real outlaws. Robin Hood's green hat covers more than one outlaw. Medieval ballads placed him in Sherwood Forest near Nottingham. Some stories make him a yeoman, others a fallen nobleman. He fights the sheriff, but the details shift every retelling. Names like Little John and Friar Tuck enter surprisingly late. Real records show many Robins, each blamed for different crimes. England's forests had harsh laws, so rebels became folk heroes. By the time of Richard the Lionheart, the legend feels assembled. The big heist was storytelling, stealing pieces from many lives. 7. Sun Tzu's Art of War was edited over centuries. That slim book shaped armies, yet its author stays slippery. China's warring states era bred generals, spies, and rival philosophies. The name Sun Wu appears, but the biography is thin. Later scholars stitched commentaries onto verses, like armor on armor. Some chapters sound practical, others read like classroom proverbs. Ancient copies differed, showing lines added, moved, and smoothed later. Generals quoted it anyway, from Tang China to modern boardrooms. Meanwhile, Sun Bin's similar text complicates who wrote what. The battlefield lesson is this: editing can win wars too. 8. Confucius's teachings were shaped by later disciples. Confucius became a monument, but the bricks came later. He taught in Lu during China's messy spring and autumn era. After his death, students traded sayings like treasured family recipes. Those fragments became the Analects, arranged by generations of followers. Different schools emphasized ritual, kindness, or strict hierarchy, depending on politics. Han Dynasty officials promoted him, turning philosophy into state curriculum. Commentators kept adding context, like subtitles explaining every raised eyebrow. So when you quote Confucius, you may quote his fan base. The surprises tradition can be edited without anyone noticing. 9. Laozi and the Tao Te Ching were collective work. The Tao Te Ching feels ancient, yet it came in layers. Legends place Laozi at a western gate, leaving on an ox. But early China loved attributing wisdom to mysterious elders. Different manuscripts rearrange chapters, like shuffling a philosophical deck. Some lines preach softness, others sound like hard-nosed political advice. Archaeologists found older versions on silk and bamboo, not stone. That discovery shows scribes edited, copied, and argued over meanings. So Laozi may be a nameplate for many quiet writers. And the Tao keeps flowing, because nobody can pin it down. 10. Pythagoras was a brand for his secretive school. Pythagoras became a math icon, yet his voice is missing. Around the Greek city of Croton, he gathered devoted followers. They lived by rules, shared meals, and guarded secrets fiercely. Later writers credit him with the famous triangle theorem. But the school worked collectively, and proofs rarely carried names. Stories claim he worshipped numbers and believed souls returned again. That mix of math and mysticism sounds like a strange startup. When followers split, each branch still sold the Pythagoras label. The theorem survived, even if the founder stays shadowy forever. 11. Aesop's fables were added to by generations. Aesop's talking animals outlived him and kept multiplying fast. Greek tradition calls Aesop a slave who told shop stories. But the earliest fables floated orally, changing with each teller. Later writers in Rome and Byzantium collected them into books. The fox, the crow, and the tortoise gained new morals. Some fables borrow plots from the Near East and India. Teachers use them like pocket parables, easy to remember. So the author became a mascot for storytelling itself. Every generation added another animal, another punchline, staying fresh. 12. Julius Caesar's story was part memoir, part PR machine. Caesar conquered Gaul, then conquered the story about it. He wrote commentaries that read like calm reports, not bragging. Each victory sounds inevitable, while mistakes disappear between tidy sentences. Back in Rome, senators read them while fearing his growing army. He crossed the Rubicon and the propaganda suddenly became reality. Allies like Mark Antony helped sell Caesar as Rome's savior. Even his enemies, like Cicero, shaped the drama with speeches. After the Ides of March, everyone fought to control his memory. Caesar's life became a civil war, fought with storytellers too. 13. Leonardo's masterpieces often came from a busy workshop. Leonardo's signature can mean a whole studio, not one hand. In Florence and Milan, patrons demanded paintings on strict deadlines. Apprentices prepared panels, mixed pigments, and copied his delicate faces. Leonardo sketched endlessly, then left assistants to finish backgrounds. Students like Salì and Francesco Melzi stayed close for years. Some works exist in multiple versions, raising eyebrows among experts. Meanwhile, he chased machines, anatomy, and impossible engineering dreams. That scattered focus made the workshop the real production engine. The Mona Lisa is famous, but the pipeline was larger. 14. Michelangelo had assistants doing the unseen work. The Sistine ceiling looked solo, but it needed a small army. In Rome, Pope Julius II demanded speed, glory, and perfection. Michelangelo designed figures, yet helpers hauled plaster up the scaffold. Fresco work means painting fast on wet wall, before drying. Assistants mixed pigments and kept lime from ruining every color. He even fired early teams, then hired others under pressure. Below, cardinals argued, while Michelangelo fought smoke and dripping water. Later, he claimed he worked alone, which sounds like ego insurance. Either way, the ceiling is genius plus logistics and muscle. 15. Raphael ran a studio that painted in his name. Raphael's Vatican fame hid a factory of brushes behind him. Raphael sketched grand plans, then his workshop filled them in. Talents like Giulio Romano handled muscles, drapery, and dramatic shadows. Another assistant, Gianfrancesco Penny, became a trusted finisher on details. When deadlines hit, Raphael signed, even if he barely touched sections. After his early death, students kept producing works in his style. Collectors later fought over what is Raphael and what is workshop. The master's secret was management as much as talent here. 16. Rembrandt's paintings were often shared with pupils. Some Rembrandts in museums may be students wearing his signature. In Amsterdam, Rembrandt taught pupils while chasing wealthy portrait clients. The studio practiced the same lighting, that golden window glow. Students copied his self-portraits, learning wrinkles, hats, and dramatic eyes. Rembrandt sometimes retouched their work, then sold it as his. When money troubles hit, the workshop output became even more important. Centuries later, experts reattributed canvases by studying brushwork and pigment. Collectors were shocked when a beloved Rembrandt became Ferdinand Bull. The big reveal is, his style was a teachable recipe. 17. Mozart's early career was managed like a family business. Mozart looked like a child miracle, but it was organized hustle. His father, Leopold Mozart, booked tours across Europe like a manager. Young Wolfgang performed for courts in Vienna, Paris, and London. Sister Nannerl also played, yet history mostly remembered the brother. Leopold negotiated fees, gifts, and introductions while writing home reports. Composers borrowed themes then, so Mozart learned to remix quickly. Copyists prepared clean parts, letting musicians play his newest pieces. Backstage, the family tracked patrons, like sales leads and notebooks. So genius mattered, but the operation behind it mattered too. 18. Beethoven's work survived through copyists and editors. Beethoven's music reached you through many hands, not just his. In Vienna, he drafted ideas in messy sketchbooks full of scratches. Copyists turned those drafts into readable parts for orchestras and publishers. As his hearing failed, friends relayed conversations in special notebooks. Publishers demanded corrections, cutting measures and fixing awkward page turns. Some premieres were chaotic, with last-minute changes shouted during rehearsals. Students like Ferdinand Ries carried messages, parts, and performance gossip. After his death, editors standardized scores, smoothing rough edges for sale. The symphonies are Beethoven, filtered through an entire music industry. 19. Columbus's voyages were a joint venture of experts. Columbus didn't discover alone. He sailed inside a collaboration machine. In 1492, Spain's Ferdinand and Isabella financed a risky Atlantic gamble. The Pinzon brothers from Palos helped crew and command the caravels. Pilots read stars, currents, and estimated distance, not mystical fate. Maps mixed hard math with rumors, including islands that never existed. On Hispaniola, translators and interpreters became crucial, yet rarely credited. Columbus wrote glowing letters, while the crew faced hunger and storms. Back in Spain, courtiers argued over titles, profits, and control. The voyage was a team effort, led by one face. 20. Magellan's world trip was completed by the crew. Magellan is remembered for circling Earth, but he didn't. In 1519, he led a Spanish fleet west from Seville. After mutinies and freezing straits, the expedition reached the Pacific. In the Philippines, Magellan backed a local ally and misjudged danger. Warriors under Lapu-Lapu killed him at Mactan, ending his command. The ships limped on, starving, trading, and burning one vessel. Juan Sebastián Elcano finally steered home, battered but triumphant. That return proved the globe's size at a terrible human cost. The first circumnavigation belongs to survivors, not the headline hero. 21. Captain Cook relied on indigenous pilots and knowledge. Captain Cook's maps were brilliant, but they weren't purely European. On HMS Endeavour, he sailed the Pacific in the late 1760s. In Tahiti, the crew watched Venus, then hunted new coastlines. A Polynesian navigator, Tupaya, joined and translated places and politics. Local guides warned about reefs, currents, and which bays were hostile. Cook took notes, yet European readers later centered him as lone genius. When Endeavour hit the Great Barrier Reef, knowledge meant survival. Charts improved because many eyes compared landmarks, languages, and stars. Exploration was a handshake, not a solo flag plant ever. 22. Pocahontas' story was rewritten by English publicists. Pocahontas became a fairy tale because colonists needed one. In early Jamestown, Powhatan and English settlers traded, fought, and bargained. The young woman called Matoaka, nicknamed Pocahontas, moved between worlds. John Smith later claimed she saved him, but the story shifted. She was captured, baptized as Rebecca, and pressured into English customs. She married tobacco planter John Rolfe, linking diplomacy to profit. In London, promoters displayed her as proof the colony was working. She died young near the Thames, far from Virginia's forests. Her life was edited for fundraising, and the edit stuck. 23. Paul Revere's Midnight Ride was not a solo dash. Paul Revere didn't ride alone. He was one relay runner. In April 1775, Boston buzzed with rumors of British troops. Lantern signals flashed from Old North Church across the Charles River. Revere rode out, but William Dawes took a separate road. They met Samuel Prescott, who pushed on after Revere was detained. Militia leaders like John Hancock and Samuel Adams were the real targets. The mission was coordination, not heroics, and certainly not perfect timing. Later, a poem simplified everything, turning teamwork into one shining name. The ride was history's group text, delivered by several messengers. 24. Guy Fawkes became a symbol shaped by propaganda. Guy Fawkes is the face, but the plot was a committee. In 1605, England, Catholics faced pressure, fines, and suspicion. Robert Catesby recruited men to blow up Parliament with gunpowder. Fawkes, a soldier, guarded barrels in a cellar under Westminster. A warning letter leaked. Searches began, and the fuse never met fire. Captured conspirators were interrogated, and the government controlled the narrative. Bonfire Night turned fear into ritual, with effigies burned yearly. Over time, Fawkes became a mask, detached from Catesby's cause. The symbol is propaganda's afterlife, louder than the man himself. 25. William Tell was a national myth built by storytellers. William Tell's apple-shot-built Swiss identity, even if he's fictional. The tale sets him in Uri, under Habsburg bailiff Hermann Gessler. He refuses to bow to a hat on a pole. Punishment is cruel theater. Shoot an apple off your son's head. Tell hits the apple, then reveals a second bolt for Gessler. Later versions add an ambush in a narrow pass by Lake Lucerne. Yet the story appears in late medieval chronicles, not early records. It echoes older European legends, suggesting storytellers swapped costumes and settings. The apple is real only as a rallying symbol. 26. The man in the iron mask was not one man. The Iron Mask mystery exploded because secrecy invites fan fiction. Under Louis XIV, France held a prisoner moved between guarded fortresses. He wore a concealed face covering, likely velvet, not solid iron. Jailers treated him carefully, suggesting he knew something inconvenient. Rumors claimed he was a twin, a minister, even a royal rival. Records mention Eustache Dauger, a servant linked to embarrassing state secrets. Later writers turned him into a celebrity puzzle for salons. Alexandre Dumas added drama, and the mask became literal iron. The prisoner is history's blur, sharpened by imagination later. 27. Thomas Edison was the public face of a lab. Edison's inventions came stamped with his name, not his team's. At Menlo Park, he built a lab that ran like a newsroom. Assistants tested filaments, measured currents, and recorded failures all night. Engineer Francis Upton handled math Edison hated, making ideas workable. Others built prototypes, like William Joseph Hammer wiring early lighting systems. Edison patented aggressively, turning workshop experiments into legal property. Newspapers loved the lone wizard narrative, and Edison rarely corrected it. Competitors complained, yet they also copied the lab model. The real invention was a system that produced inventions. 28. The light bulb was a race, not one idea. The light bulb wasn't a single aha moment, it was a sprint. Inventors chased steady glow, while cities demanded safer indoor light. In Britain, Joseph Swan used carbon filaments in public demonstrations. In America, Edison improved vacuum, wiring, and standardized sockets. Both needed good generators, meters, and a power grid to matter. Patents collided, lawsuits followed, and partnerships formed to avoid ruin. Meanwhile, smaller inventors kept tweaking filaments, glass, and sealing techniques. The public remembers one hero, but the timeline is a crowded track. Every lit room is a medal shared by many workshops. 29. Alexander Graham Bell was one of many phone inventors. Bell's telephone fame hides a patent race full of near misses. In 1876, Bell filed a patent as voices traveled through wires. That same day, Elisha Gray filed a patent notice for similar ideas. Antonio Meucci had earlier experiments, but money and paperwork failed him. Laboratories in Boston and Chicago buzzed with vibrating reeds and membranes. Bell's assistant, Thomas Watson, built devices, tweaking screws and diaphragms. Legal battles stretched for years, turning invention into courtroom endurance. Meanwhile, companies formed, lines expanded, and the phone became infrastructure. The breakthrough was real, but the credit stayed complicated always. 30. The Wright brothers had a whole shop behind them. The first flight wasn't two brothers alone on a windy dune. In Dayton, Ohio, Wilbur and Orville ran a bicycle shop. They tested wings with a homemade wind tunnel, chasing reliable lift. At Kitty Hawk, locals helped haul gear through sand and storms. Mechanic Charlie Taylor built the lightweight engine when shops said no. Their propellers were carefully calculated, more like boat screws than wings. On December 19th, the flyer lifted briefly, then crashed hard. They kept iterating, returning to Dayton to rebuild and refine. Aviation began as teamwork, plus stubborn experiments in repair skills. 31. Henry Ford popularized assembly lines built by others. Ford's assembly line changed life, but it wasn't born in his head. In Detroit, the Model T demanded massive output at low prices. At Highland Park, engineers broke work into tiny, repeatable motions. Conveyor ideas existed in meatpacking plants, where carcasses moved station to station. Ford's team, including Charles Sorensen, tuned the line like an instrument. Part standardization, gauges, and interchangeable tools made speed possible. Workers endured brutal pacing, and turnover became a constant headache. The famous $5 day was partly a fix for that churn. The revolution was logistics, labor, and engineering stitched together. 32. James Watt improved engines made by earlier tinkerers. Watt didn't invent the steam engine. He made it finally useful. In Britain, Newcomen engines pumped mines but wasted heat constantly. Watt noticed the cylinder kept cooling, like reheating soup every minute. His separate condenser kept steam hot while condensing elsewhere. He partnered with Matthew Boulton, who funded workshops and sales networks. Engineers refined valves, gears, and governors, making factories more reliable. Patents protected profits, but they also sparked feuds and workarounds. Soon steam-powered mills, ships, and railways, far beyond coal mines. Watt's genius was improvement, plus a business machine behind it. 33. Gutenberg's printing press was built on Asian innovations. Gutenberg's press sparked Europe, but the ingredients traveled far. In Mainz, he perfected metal type, ink, and a strong press. But paper came west from China, through Islamic lands over centuries. Earlier, Baisheng used movable type in China, long before Europe. Korea even cast metal type, printing books under Goryeo and Joseon. Gutenberg's twist was combining pieces into a repeatable commercial system. His Bible looked uniform, tricking readers into thinking it was hand-copied. Investors like Johann Fust financed him, then sued when debts grew. Printing was global tech, perfected locally, then exported everywhere.